Today is the day of a tale of tales that the world know very well. But to them that the story is told about forever remains a tale.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. It is I, your king, King Clifford Jefferson, descendant of Godfrey the fifth Caliban Jew, son of Folk, ruler of Jerusalem. Reincarnation of King Edgar, which we know as Jesus Christ. You are amongst the English Third Temple Church of England, with our councils, our members, our officers. Being humbly, before me is my queen, Sister Godwin from the House of Godwin, as well as Archbishop from the House of Belmont. Cole Judah, he should be here shortly, as well as Earl Burgess from the House of Burgess. We have our councilors, Sister Walker, Sister Allen, as well as our noble brother Scott and brother Gray, and all those who will be joining us shortly from their respective houses. We greet you and we meet you in peace, as well as Brother Milligan. Greetings, noble. We have a great lesson for you today. As I was stating before we got recording, I got something great for you, brothers and sisters, to hear when this video is posted, because it's, as Archbishop said, our story is told in many ways, and we're telling our story now, in a communicative way, and informative, and being informative to who we are as English people, and we're going to do it in other aspects as well. So these are some of the agendas that we have undertaken as a society or a polity. And once again, I just want to say that I love you all and thank you for being humble and your subjectivity and lieu of what they call today citizenship. And we know from that comes your allegiance and your action, who you take as you prevent patriarch. So with that, I'll cease. I'll let the Queen say a couple of words, as well as Archbishop, and each for everyone, you get on with this marvelous lesson. And I digress.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Queen Lisa Jordan Goodwin from the House of Godwin. I want to say, looking forward to another marvelous lesson from the King and everyone here on the King's Bench. I know we've been discussing a lot in the past couple of weeks, but I'm looking forward to this illustrious lesson that the King has for us here today. And also I want to give honors to our newest member of the family. We welcomed a new second grandson. And we named, well, I want to name him King, but we named him also the name of Kasai.
Yes.
Wanted Kasai King, but my daughter named him Kasai Rain. Yeah. And she didn't even know that the name Rain actually means king. It means someone of loyal descent. So it could be either a king or queen. Yeah. So we got lucky that she named him, gave him the middle name of Rain. Yeah. So I just want to give honors to him as well. Yeah. And with that, I digress.
Well said, Queen. Well said, Queen. On that, like I said, our ancestors work in mysterious ways. She actually bestowed both names, Kasi and as well as King. And as we said, I wanted to mention it, but when it comes to this, my daughter's like kind of standoffish. So I didn't want to say anything to kind of spook her. So when I said, because when she called me, I said, did y'all name her yet? So I said, name her King. My daughter was like, oh, here we go, bye. I said, well, now I better not say that to her. And tell her, well, call and tell her we're gonna name it. That name means the same. I said, no, don't say that. As soon as you find out it means King, she ain't gonna let you put it. You know what I'm saying? So she put it. So I still didn't even tell her that it means King. So it just shows you how the spirit works. Yes. They're one and the same. Mm-hmm. So well said, Queen. Archbishop.
Congratulations, King and Queen, for the new heir. That's now part of the family, as part of our allegiance, not only to the King and the Queen, but to the Kings and Queens heirs. So now to have another family who we actually get to look after and watch them grow within the church is going to be a beautiful thing. So with that, once again, congratulations on that. Once again, the next heir in line who's going to eventually be king. But in time, like I said, we're going to go ahead and do what we have to do for the church, so we have what we need to be prepared for the next heir to be able to do his home of duty as reign, which is in his name. So today is September 4th, 2972, which is the Berber calendar, which is equivalent to 2022 Gregorian. And to the people of England, Great Britain, Albion, which you've known today now, based off of the historical information been coming back to the forefront, it is, once again, it is a beautiful time to be alive, to commune with our brothers and sisters who have not only been following along on our path since we have been resurrected back, but also have found themselves ready to step into the domain as the body politic of the king. And with that being said, we need our brothers and sisters to accept who they are in this day and time, because we don't have that much more time for us to continue to keep teaching something that has been reiterated over and over. The conviction should be in your heart. And like the king said, we got something beautiful, which is going to be able to help put you back into that proper frequency. And it's something coming from the king himself, which I feel is a gift from God. So once again, be prepared for that when the time comes for us to be able to be played, because we will be saying it or singing it here within the church itself. So I digress, and I leave the rest of the introduction to the rest of the brothers and sisters here on the panel.
Well said, Archbishop. Brother Burgess from the House of Burgess.
Greetings, family.
Greetings.
It's always a pleasure to sit amongst y'all and for this communion and break bread and go down this rabbit hole, connecting us back to time immemorial. So I'm just looking forward to what King has, so I could download the conscious and do what it is that I need to do as an officer and a trustee.
Well said. Beautiful words. Countess Allen from the House of Allen. Greetings.
Greetings, everyone. Greetings.
Greetings.
Wonderful to see everyone here today. Happy to be back. Ready to dive into this wonderful lesson today. Oh, congratulations again on the new heir. I know it's exciting time. Little pitter patter of those feet moving around. Always a joyous occasion.
Actually, we will tell you. You sure? I'm gonna let Rich.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we went to go see him yesterday. So my daughter was changing her, and my queen was feeding her, and he was straining, making all these faces. So my daughter went to change him, boy. He let go, and as we was cleaning up from letting go, he peed right in her face, straight up like an arrow. You know how when you plug a faucet,
Yeah.
when you and the cork come off when it's shooting up, man, it was so comical. And then he looked at me when he did. He was like, "Oh, God, was adorable." So it was just beautiful, just the experience, something that of that occasion,
Wow.
and you know,
that's like nature, like something you can't hold in,
Yeah.
and the power of a woman is just crazy. Like, we've been crying if our toenail came off. We've been screaming at the top of our lungs as men. And my daughter was handling that like a trooper.
Wow.
Like, and all the stories I heard about women doing childbirth, and to see my daughter handling that, and I'm like, well, you okay? No, but I got to go through it. Just to hear her say that, I'm like, wow. That's strength, that's power. That's the ability of love, and her life has been changed forevermore. So I just give honor to womanhood. So I glad you can continue on.
I was a doula for my nephew, him and his wife, in January, earlier this year. So I got to be a part of a home birth, something I've never participated in before, witnessed it, but was not there. But this time I was actually there, and I was a part of something that was just, it was just, and to think about the power of a woman, she really carried it very well. She handled, when the pain was coming, she was, she would just go into that zone, and my nephew, her husband, he was just You know, I don't know. I think that his emotions were probably kind of up here, and the only way to like curtail that was just be in his phone. So he was in his phone constantly, you know, because he didn't like to see her in pain.
Yes.
It was so wonderful when the baby just finally emerged from the water. You know, he came out. He laid on her chest, and he just opened his eyes. He was looking like this. And he just looked up at her. He didn't cry or anything. Calm. I mean, I've never seen anything like that in my life. And yeah, it was a wonderful thing to see and to witness. And I'm gonna stop talking now. So I digress.
Well said. Well said, Countess Allen.
Countess
Like I
Allen.
said, we give respect to womanhood, you know, how we know that because we come from you. So we can imagine the hell we put y'all through inside and the hell we put y'all through outside. So to that respect, y'all have it. With that, greetings, Countess Walker.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Congratulations on the new heir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a wonderful event. And actually, I was actually present virtually when Erica had, or Countess Allen had her new heir come.
Oh, wonderful.
I witnessed that with her. I actually was studying yesterday, day before, and while I work, I listened to the videos from the king in the crown land, and every day I watch it and listen, it just becomes more concrete, and you get to understand it and see it more. And then I'm looking at people, and I'm wondering why nobody gets it.
Yeah.
And you know, when we have our phones and, you know, you could just watch the videos as you go throughout your day. And Archbishop, you are right. Wikipedia is changing. I noticed that as well this week. And I'm just glad to be here. I'm glad to get this information so I can have it for my heirs, because I have 3 children and I have 2 twin grandbabies.
Yeah.
And I'll be passing this information down to my heirs, because it's not just for me. There's going to be things that is going to happen in their lifetime because we're here today. I digress.
Well said. You know, in lieu of what you just said,
Countess Walker.
and the fact that they're changing it to inform you that time is speeding up, because you're getting it before they're able to change it.
Mm-hmm.
It's after the fact now. Wife said it the other day. We went yesterday. We went to breakfast at 3 o'clock, and then after that, and that must have been
A late breakfast.
45 minutes. They came late with the food, so that had to be every bit of 49 minutes to an hour. Then we stopped to go. Now that's like had to be 4 o'clock. Then we stopped to the auto shop because my car had been in the shop for over a year now. I put over $10,000 worth of money in it, and I still haven't received the car. So I just went to have filed a police report and get that underway. But that took about 35, 40 minutes because we had to wait for the officer to come. So when we got in the car and took off, Boo said,
It said
4 o'clock.
it's almost like time stood still for us for like a whole hour.
It was only 4
And
o'clock.
I've never seen this before, but we got in the car and it said 4:02.
Wow.
Now we didn't leave the diner till almost 3:20 possibly. So it was like, there's no way we could accomplish 2 things like within just 40 minutes, let's say.
Yeah.
But it was almost like time stood still for like a whole hour for us.
Yeah.
And I said to the king, I said, is it not strange to you that it's this time? I'm saying it's 4:02, but in actuality, it should be like 5:02.
5 o'clock.
And I'm checking all my clocks. I'm looking at the time on my cell phone versus the time in the car versus his cell phone. And I'm like, yeah, it's only 4:02. Like,
Yeah.
you know, but there are no strange happenings. Like, it was like, you know, he just, I guess, you know, knew that we had to be somewhere by a certain time. And it just like, you know, gave us the opportunity to still go and continue and do what we had to do.
Slow down.
Yeah.
It was just,
Time is slowed down
Yeah.
for it. And the ability about that, the beautiful thing about that we witnessed it.
Mhm.
It's happening but people are not able to witness it because as time slows down, we move
There-
with time.
Right.
Because I always say time never was when we were not. So the only way we know time is by being with time or being on time. Everybody follow?
Follow.
All right. Greetings, brother Means. Good to see you this morning, Noble.
Grand Rising, Grand Rising. Nice to see you all too, Grand Rising, King,
Right,
Queen,
all right.
Bishop, brothers and sisters on the panel. It was great to be here again today. I missed you all last week. They've been banging on us pretty hard, but I made it today. I agree with you all. It's obvious now there's a lot of changes being made. As I go through Wikipedia myself and some of the studyings after looking at some of the previous lessons, and you begin to expound on some of the links that they have in there, the rabbit hole continues to go deeper and deeper and deeper, and you find out more information which is pertinent to us, but it also it has something to do with everything that we learn about ourselves, our histories, our heirs as to come, and us as descendants of all the royal lines. I was reading something about Alfred the Great. I don't even remember how I got onto the link. I actually was studying the lessons from Denison, I believe. And he has a law, and it actually was the Dane law. So the time freeze that was mentioned about it going through a galactic change, I noticed that myself. It seems like some of the times at work, we should have been leaving at a certain time, but it seemed like it didn't move. This was just past Wednesday. So yeah, I noticed the same change in time. I think it's in the atmosphere. And reading, it seems like we went from the present time back to the 5th century all in one moment.
Yeah.
It's just studying it, and the next day it seemed like I never moved from that time as I was reading. But the expansion of the mind, our synopsis begin to grow as we begin to take those bodies that were of old and begin to elevate in our minds to become those same crowns, those body of politics, the mental aspect of those people who we descend from, to become whole in one. It seems like we're all interchangeable at the same time from present to. So again, I'm very appreciative to be here, and can't wait to hear what you have to say, King. I won't hold any longer.
Well said, brother Means. One question.
Yes, sir.
You work on Saturdays?
Yes, it's Saturday nights overnight.
Saturdays overnight?
Yeah.
What time you go in?
6:30, 5:30 p.m. Normally we get out of there at 5, but we've been working till like 8 o'clock. It's been some long hours lately.
Yeah, they really got you stressed out. What about Thursday?
Thursday evening, same time. It's always p.m. It's 5:30 p.m. normally to 6 a.m. And
What days do you have off?
normally I'm off on let's see, Tuesday and Wednesdays. Those are my off.
Okay.
Yes.
You might have to make an exception to you and have a council meeting, like an informal one, just to get you up to date and to speak for those who are officers. So we'll make sure make preparations for that. But thank you, brothers, for your saying.
Yes.
Greetings, brother Murph Mundy. Good to have you. Greetings, brother Scott. House of Scott. Good to see you, Noble.
Greetings, King. Greetings, Queen.
All right, love that smile, man. Yo, I got the same shirt on, brother. Just about.
Absolutely.
Almost
Looking
like
good
it.
as usual, King.
Thank you, Noble. Good to
No,
have you, brother. What you got to say today?
Well, I'm excited for your grandson. I'm excited for the life that he's gonna see and experience. He's gonna be fighting a lot because he's gonna be telling people that his
Oh,
grandparents
he
Already
already
is.
is.
Already
are a
is.
true king and a
Already
queen, and
fighting.
he's gonna be in it. It's gonna be great to see that. You guys are gonna really enjoy watching him grow up, I'm sure. But just listening to you guys and looking at the excitement on your face, that excitement that it brought to all of us have children and that kind of thing. So it's always happy when the babies come. But it makes me think about the movie The Matrix for the people that are watching us, with the blue pill and the red pill. So all I can say is the king is who he says he is. So you have to come see for yourself. You know what I mean? And make that honest effort to definitely give yourself the benefit of the doubt and come and find out why we are heirs and where we come from. So once again, King, I'm looking forward to what you got to say. Always a pleasure. And again, congratulations.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
What's
And
up?
all those who heard that and all those who are listening, you got to walk across this fire, but you can't have no shoes on. You gotta walk bare feet. If you can make it across, you good to go. All right, this is that fire. You gotta walk across this fire barefoot. Barefoot. It's cold and hot. It will scorn you. All right. So as Brother Mean said, as Brother Scott said, as well as on behalf of everybody else who spoke prior, this is the truth. This is the truth. Well said. Brother, let's have Brother Milligan. Greetings, Brother Milligan. I'm just trying to get those. Didn't have to speak. You there, Brother Milligan? Okay, let's give him time to get the situation together. Brother Gray, greetings, my man. Greetings.
I remember Brother Gray.
Okay, Brother Gray, he's working. Okay. Greetings, Brother Moon.
I'll say something.
Good morning.
Yes,
All right,
sir.
go ahead.
Yeah, greetings, King and Queen. Congratulations on your newborn heir, Archbishop, and the rest of the panel. I'm at work today, so I'll be short. But I just sometimes sit here and look at all the beautiful faces upon this King's bench, and it reminds me how fortunate I am to be here and not to take it for granted. And that, you know, just like the King was saying, time slows down, sometimes time speeds up. And me and Brother Means was talking about the other day, we was talking together, and it seemed like every time we're talking about the lessons, we always find something. It's almost like the work, both of us working together makes it go faster.
Yeah.
But at that time, we was holding that special consciousness, that I guess you call it, some people call it the Christ consciousness or whatever.
Yes.
But you can only stay in it, seems like, for a minute. But when you do, man, everything makes sense. And I beg all that are listening, that's going to be watching this later, to try to tune into that light and understand what you're hearing, if it takes you 20 times watching it, because it's very, very important and not to be taken for granted. And with that, I digress.
Well said, Brother Gray from the House of Gray. Greetings, Brother Moonday. How you doing today, brother?
Peace and greetings, King and Queen. I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. You know what I mean? Congratulations to the new heir. Peace and blessings to him. Or, you know, is a girl, boy?
Young man. Young man. He acting like a man. He might look like a boy, but he act like a young man. Thank you for the compliment, too,
Congratulations. I'm just here for, you know, I'm blessed to be here. You know,
all right.
thanks,
We're glad to have you, Noble. Short but sweet.
Burger.
Thank you. All right. Let's see. I think that's it for now. Brother Militant, are you available? Oh, all right. Right in time. Greetings, Sister Militant from the House of Militant. I know. I said she gonna be here.
Countess Militant.
Yeah, no, I actually looked for the connection and I didn't see it. I was looking and looking and then it just popped up. So I don't know what happened, but I was on standby.
All right. Good to have you. You made it right on time, too.
Okay.
All right. Okay, go ahead and say your part.
Peace and blessings, everyone. Thanks for, I'm glad to be here.
All right. All right. Good to have you here again. Brother Milligan, are you there? Okay, I guess you're in disposal. So we, once again, with all that has been said, we greet you in the spirit of our ancestors, our Jesus Christ, our God of peace, and all the above. We wish you and we love you, and we honor you for being here to entertain and to understand this marvelous lesson that me and the Queen is ready to bestow upon you. So with that, let's get started. Archbishop, first of all, how much time we working with?
It's based off of the internet connection. We should be good at least for about almost 2.
That's what I'm talking about. That's right. All right, so the last time, anybody remember what the last class was about? What was that?
I can never pronounce that wrong. Kestuskwe?
Sestuque.
Yeah.
That's the Quay.
Well said. What else did we talk about?
The Treaty of Paris of 1763.
What
83.
else did we talk about?
Westminster Abbey, the Black monks, how they dedicated that to Saint Peter, but you was explaining the difference between the two because ecclesiastical is headed by the bishops and civil is headed by the corporate soul.
All right, well said, well said.
Noble.
All right, that's everybody. See how bold he was? See how bold when he just stepped out there. Have faith in yourself. You know, wife said, you speak so aggressive, people scared to say something. I'm like, I need people who's not gonna be scared. You know, if you're scared, then I can't expect you to come at my defense. If you're just gonna turn it back and running, you know, you gotta be able to stand. And he's showing me, he's stepping out there. He could be wrong, but that's all right, because there's never a wrong answer. And you know next time not to say that, right? Now, if you say it again, it's just plain stupid. That means you ain't listening. That's why it's very important to listen. You listen and you obtain what you're listening, then there can be no false moves. So if everybody listened to the last class we talked about based off the last podcast, and does everybody understand what was said by Brother Berger from the House of Burgers in regards to the discussion, then everybody would be should be on the same point in regards to the Statutes. Everybody remembers the case dealing with town of Paulette versus Clark. Everybody remember that case?
Yes.
Everybody been studying that case.
Yes, we studied.
All right, so now what I said is I'm going to have everybody speak about 5 minutes about that lesson. I'm not going to do that today. I just did that to scare you. All right, I might do it next time, but this time I just did it to scare you. And I think I need to be a little bit more informative about the case number the city of Paulette. Now, everybody know who Benedict was, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm gonna pick somebody. Brother Burgers, since you want to jump out window. Who has Benedict Wentworth?
He was a merchant, and as well, he was part of the assembly and the council, if I remember correctly.
Well said, well said. All right. Sister Allen, what was the case about? Town of Paulette versus Clark. Just real quick. If you don't have it, just say I'll pass.
I do have it. Okay, so the town of Paulette versus Clark was the royal grant of land to the Church of England in the colony of New Hampshire that was not completed. So prior to the American Revolutionary War, the state of Vermont, as successor to the English crown, could claim the land and convey it to the town of Paulette for schools, which was held in the Statutes by trust.
Beautiful. Everybody give Sister Walker a round of applause.
Thank you.
Well said, well said. Okay. Now, Sister Walker, what is the Statutes? I mean, Sister, no, that was Sister Allen. Sister Walker, what's the Statutes?
The Statute Trust is a trust set up by Parliament in 1666 for the benefit of the English heirs.
Okay. Brother Scott, according to the city of Paulette versus Clark, what happened to the Church of England?
Say again, you, sir.
What happened to the Church of England according to the court case dealing with the city of town of Paulette? What did it say about the Church of England? And Sister Allen said that it was held in the Statutes, for lack of a proper person. So now I forgot my question. What did I ask you?
What happened to the Church of England?
How was it?
Yeah, what happened to the Church of England as a result of lack of proper person in regards to the grant that was given by the king? What happened to the Church of England?
The Church of England was never established, King, but the Episcopalians did their best to usurp and take the place of the heirs.
Give that brother a round of applause. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I need to hear. Everybody interjecting about this case. Okay, so now we already know what the trust was about. We already know that it didn't transfer from the king, which is the grantor, for lack of a proper person. Now, Brother Means, if it was dissolved as established by Brother Scott, what church was dissolved by the United States as well as the British government?
Didn't read the case, but if I'm recollect correctly, the English Church of England was dissolved. Them usurping authority, which they had no authority to do, to take the place of the English heirs, and rename them as Negro, Black, Colored, etc.
Everybody give that brother a hand of applause. You nailed that one. You nailed it, brother. That's what I'm talking about. So if Brother Means said the Church of England that was dissolved by the United States in 1789, as well as the British government in 1707, then what church did not dissolve? Let's have it, Brother Gray. Or Brother Gray, can you answer that or no?
Yes, that'd be the original church, Westminster Abbey.
Hold on. Let me rephrase my question.
Ask it again.
Let me ask you first my question. Brother Means just said in 1789, they dissolved the English Church of England. So they dissolved the English Church of England. Remember, the case is talking about the Church of England.
Right.
And I asked what church was dissolved in that case. Brother Means said the English Church of England. And we already discussed the different types of churches of England.
Right.
So my question to you is, what Church of England was dissolved? What Church of England was not dissolved?
Okay, the English church was not absolved because they didn't have the power to do it.
Well said. Everybody give him a clap.
And
I'm gonna tell you why I'm gonna give you a clap. Because you answered the question with the true answer to the question. Even though that wasn't the answer I was looking for, you stuck to the gun and said the English Church of England because it never dissolved. The question I was looking for was that it was the Roman Catholic, or what we call the Episcopalian Church, which was the one that took the place. But as you said, it never had any standing in law, as we see in the court case.
That his answer was a concrete answer.
It's a concrete answer. Everybody give him a hand. Everybody give him a hand. This shows me that y'all are actually studying. And I'm proud to be your teacher. Because for all those who watch this lesson and don't get it directly from me, or anybody who goes to that field of understanding, remember, philosophy, theology is nothing without it being backed by law. It has to be sound in the way of law. Because remember, before you had state and colonies, there was a church state, which was governed by its own laws, which is called a state, government, body politics, polity, whatever term you choose to use. All right. So now we already have clarified for the public, for the citizens or subject, whatever one you choose, you are still subject to the British crown. If you choose to be, it's your choice. We're not telling you you got to follow us. Hey, you got your own path to walk. We're not following anybody. We're only going back. So we're not actually following anybody. We're going back to what they told us because we got lost. We can admit it. We're not ashamed to say that we was lost. Our estate was lost. Our assets was lost. Why? Because they became exceeded as a result of eminent domain by way of conquest by a process called fee and simple. And we're gonna break it down to this case, to the Statutes. Because as we read, let's go here. What y'all said is qualified under the Statutes. First of all, let's read it. Statutes is shortened version, means he was alive. Literally, for whose use benefit the deed was made. Deed means deed. In modern terms, a beneficiary who's a natural person. So that means that a person was left for trust by somebody who made you a beneficiary. Now beneficiaries can be natural person or entities. There's only two types. A natural person or entity. How do we know that? Original purpose of a statute. Both statutes are rooted in the medieval law, a legal device for avoiding feudal services. They're talking about corporations now, due to the overload by granting the land for the use of another, who owned none of these to the lords. The law of statutes tended to defer jurisdiction, declared law, to courts of equity as opposed to the less flexible common law courts. Let's go down a little further. Any such trust legal status was partly to circumvent the statute of mortmain, which means dead pledge, which sought to end the relatively common practice of leaving real property, land, millings, rights, markets, fisheries to the church, meaning any of its branches. Church of England has many branches: Episcopalian, Lutheran, Methodist, Protestant, Baptist, whatever choice, take your pick. All right, this is not biased to anybody. This is why they adopted, when they created the United States, freedom of religion. There was no freedom of religion prior to the adoption of the state, because there was only one religion in state, which is called the Church of England. All right, and everybody, I'm pretty sure we understand that based off the answers I got from y'all today. So once again, I give y'all a hand of applause. All right, so in confirmation of what was just said by my diligent students, it said any in such trust, legal status, but partly to circumvent the statutes of mortmain, which sought to end the relatively common practice of leaving real property to the church on the tenant's death, so as to avoid dues, which could unpaid lead to reversion or repossession of the tenancy to the landlord. Two concepts explain the origin of the mortmain, which means dead hand. First, it can be characterized as referring to the deceased owner and the former owner of their desire. That's going back to the city of Paulette. The grantor, i.e. the king. The king is not a physical person. The king is natural, unnatural person, because it's entity. As a station, the body who sits in that seat is natural, but the station is not. It's immortal. It's perpetual. It's forever. All right? Recognized at the common law, it never dies. And the land never leaves its dead hand, because it's held in a trust. Before this act, vast tracts of land were left directly to the church, which never relinquished it. Other lands could be transferred to anyone. It's being simple. Everybody see that? All right?
Yeah.
The other way is inherited through family, or sometimes only through the male line, or revert to an overlord or the crown upon the death of the tenant. Church land had been a source of contention between the crown and the church for centuries. Inherited only is fee and tell. So you got fee and simple, you got fee and tell. Fee and tell is a step lower than allodial, because when it's allodial, that means the crown owner. Crown land is allodial because it's entail. It transfers by way of operation of law. And entail land is only held for beneficiaries. And the crown land, which is entail, is personified or personified, incorporated or incarnated by the crown, which is through a corporation soul, because the crown is a corporation soul. as Brother Berger said, there's two types of corporation soul: civil and ecclesiastical. Civil is civil law under the king, because he's concrete. You need laws to go by a natural person. So that means that the natural person has to sit in the seat of a corporation soul, i.e. the crown. Versus or contrast to a corporation soul, which is ecclesiastical, which is overseen by a bishop that brings in Rome. Everybody stay awake on this. I need y'all to understand this. Let's talk about the Bishop of Rome. The Bishop of Rome is called a vicar. All right, and these are a corporate aggregate. Even though a corporation soul is a corporate aggregate, because the corporation is abstract. They have an abstract faith in the abstract God, abstract worship. That makes sense to everybody?
Yes. Follow.
All right, so that's the reason why in the case law, they switch places with us and move the concrete for the abstract. That's why they got people going to churches, worshiping, giving faith to something they can't see.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get home. Everybody following, right?
Follow.
Follow.
I love doing this. All right, let's bring it home. So everybody know Westminster Abbey. I'm just going over what you already know. Westminster Abbey, formerly entitled the Collegiate Church of St. Peter at Westminster. Everybody see Westminster Church, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I'm going to key points. Country, England. Denomination, Church, England. So Westminster Abbey is a division or a part, or is a division of the Church of England.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now we know this is our church, Westminster Abbey. Why? Because as Sister Countess Alice said, Westminster, ministers of the West. Right? They got to think it's about one church when they talking about ministers of the West, because we're the ministers of the West. Why? Because they were dissolved in the United States in 1789. They ain't talking about England. They said by law in 1789. So those ministers in 1789, which were dissolved, were right here. Makes sense, everybody?
Yeah.
Follow.
Follow.
It was founded in 1960 AD. 1960 AD. Now, the Church of England, we're going to go right here. It says a part of the Church of England, but which one are we associated with? Because the one that exists now, this day and time, is this church. Is this church. Let's see. Brother, what can I call him? Sister Militant. I hope you're ready for this.
Yes.
Who was the founder of this Church of England?
St. Augustine.
Everybody give her a clap. Yes. St. Augustine. Who commissioned St. Augustine?
Okay, a Pope Gregory or St. Dustin?
Pope Gregory the First. You was right the first time.
Pope Gregory,
So,
okay.
that's good. Pope Gregory who?
Pope Gregory the Third.
The first.
It was Pope Gregory the First, apologies.
Okay, that's fine. You close. All right. So Pope Gregory, it says it right here. Now, mind you, look at the territory that the Church of England under the fraudulent church. Remember, if the United States dissolved our Church of England in 1789, and our church goes back to 960 AD, look at the territory that our church governed as being part of Westminster's at the Church of England. England, Wales, Isles of Man, Channel Island, Continental Europe, and Morocco. Everybody understand?
Yes.
Follow.
Okay, so we always had territorial jurisdiction because under the Ecclesiastical Act of 1532 by King Henry VIII, he said Kingdom of England was an empire, right? Albion means empire. So here we see the founder, Augustine of Canterbury, which, as Sister Middleton said, was created by Augustine of Canterbury, commissioned by Pope Gregory I. Brother Monday, have you been studying? Or should I pass? It's okay, brother.
You should pass, man. I've been.
Okay.
I'll be.
All right,
I'm
Brother
still
Scott,
trying to.
this question's for you. All right. If Sister Middleton said that Augustine of Canterbury was commissioned by Pope Gregory I, what was he commissioned to do?
He was commissioned to found
Not do, Brother Scott.
Okay, okay.
I have to assume he was commissioned to establish the church,
What church?
the Church of England, Westminster Abbey.
And at the expense of the church, what was that church, which was a mission? It was a missionary, so you're correct. But what was the mission of that church in regards to the influencing of the people already there?
They were supposed to convert the Anglo-Saxons into Christians.
Give that brother a hand of applause. Woo, we fishermen, y'all. That's what I'm talking about. I like that. Sound answer. All right. So if that's the case, they were commissioned to have the Anglo-Saxons convert to Christianity. And we know Christianity is what? The abstract faith.
Mm-hmm.
So here's another question for you. If that was the case, is that story true or false?
True, King, true.
Wrong.
It was false.
Yes. Can anybody tell me why it's false? Archbishop.
Say the different reason why the story was false, because the
Yeah.
calendar don't match up.
Get that brother an applause. That's what I'm talking about. See how I teach y'all? See how I teach y'all? Anybody come talking about some stuff prior to that calendar, story is invalid.
Mm-hmm.
It's invalid. Okay, we can move on. So we see that Augustine is irrelevant. Well, if that's the case, can you tell me who the person that established the Gregorian calendar, Brother Scott?
Pope Gregory the 13th, October 13th.
I didn't ask you.
You said Pope Gregory the 13th.
You said that, Brother Scott?
No, it's Brother
Brother
Burger.
King, I couldn't hear you. We have some mic issues.
That's Brother Bergen's answer. I didn't ask you.
Can you hear me?
All right. Oh, since you got that one, all right. So if it was Pope Gregory the 13th, and he created what, Brother Burgers?
So you said Pope Gregory the 13th created what?
What did he create?
The Gregorian calendar.
Well said. All right. Question to you, Brother Scott. Who is ruling at the same time as this Gregorian calendar is created? Can't hear you.
I don't know, King.
Okay. The Burgers.
The Tudors.
Who is the monarch at the, or let me rephrase the question, Brother Scott. Who is the monarch at that time? When was the Gregorian Bible created, Brother Burgers?
The calendar or the Bible?
The calendar.
1582.
So my question to you, Brother Scott, who is the monarch ruling at that time?
Who's the monarch ruler?
In 1582.
Yes.
I don't
Think
know.
about it. Take your time. Look at the screen.
1582.
It's all right.
King Henry VIII.
There you go. There you go. So we disqualified Henry XVIII, Godfrey Pope XV, and all those Gregory, because the past 13, you go back to the first. They are disqualified because of the Gregorian calendar. And we just disqualified Augustine of Canterbury because there was no Gregorian calendar. And we know that the only thing created was under the Episcopal polity was Henry XVIII. And as you just said, if the Pope Gregory the 13th never existed because he the one created the so-called Henry XVIII because the king in that time was Henry VIII. So all that story in reference to those Pope Gregory was false.
Understood.
Because Henry VIII did what? Dissolve our church. His church is in there. Everybody follow?
Follow.
Okay. All right. So as we can see, going back to Westminster Abbey, Westminster Abbey.
Interesting.
Go ahead,
It was Queen Elizabeth I on the throne.
Oh, King Elizabeth I?
Yeah.
Okay. It must have had passed from King Henry VIII to King Elizabeth I. Yeah, I think it was 1554.
1582. That was Elizabeth I.
So now we can see our church, which is actually the original Church of England, called Westminster, right?
Correct.
And it said it was founded in 960 AD. And it was dedicated to St. Peter. It was dedicated to St. Peter. So I mean, King Edgar created this church with the assistance of St. Dustin. And we know that all the Bible in its entirety, based off those who created the Bible, we know that in 960 that the Church of England was established and under Westminster Abbey. And we know that the Bible in its entirety was created by those theologians, philosophers, in regards to the biblical stories in that Westminster Church, but it was under what they call Westminster Assembly. So all the stories that come from the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, all came through this Church of England, which was under the guidance of Westminster Assembly, which was created through those who were tutored by the House of Tudors. Because King James got his start from them. And this church still exists today. But it was dissolved as established by law in the city of Paulette by the United States as well as the British government in 1707, because the British government got their start from this Church of England, which was a Protestant Roman Catholic church through the Reformation, or what they call the dissolution of the monastery. Everybody follow?
Follow.
Follow.
Let's speed back to history. A whole bunch of stuff is going on from 960 till we get to the 16th century. 1540 to 1550, Henry XVIII assumed direct royal control.
Henry VIII.
Henry VIII. Right. Westminster's diocese was dissolved in 1550. Everybody see that?
Yes.
Westminster diocese was dissolved. Turbulent times. But the abbey was recognized in 1552, retroactively to 1550, as the second cathedral for the Diocese of London until 1556. The already old expression, robbing Peter to pay Paul, may have been given on a new lease of life when money meant for the abbey, i.e. Westminster Abbey, which is dedicated to St. Peter, was diverted to the treasury of St. Paul's Cathedral. It says, the abbey was restored under the Benedictine, under the Catholic monarch, Mary I of England, but there was again ejected under Elizabeth I in 1559. In 1560, Elizabeth reestablished Westminster as a royal peculiar, a church of England, responsible directly to the sovereign, rather than the diocesan bishop, and made it a collegiate church of St. Peter, that it is a non-cathedral church with an attached chapter of canons headed by the dean. So they're making or showing you that the Church of England is a royal peculiar, meaning it's the crown. And it goes back to that which was dedicated to St. Peter, which was Westminster Abbey in 960. Everybody understand?
Follow.
But they robbed Peter to pay Paul, because when you look at the New Ministers Charter, you look at the New Ministers Charter. The New Ministers Charter is an Anglo-Saxon illuminated manuscript that was composed by Bishop Ethelwald and presented to the new ministers in Winchester by King Edgar in the year 966 AD to commemorate the Benedictine Reform, and is now part of the British Library. Everybody hear that?
Follow.
Follow.
It's the manuscript. There's St. Peter, there's St. Mary, and there's King. Remember, symbolism. Everything is symbolism. As above, so below. What you bind in heaven, what you bind on earth. What's the other saying? What's loose in heaven will be loose on earth. So as we can see here, this is the abstract story of what's going on right now. I am the reincarnation of King Edgar the Peaceful. The Westminster Abbey, which was dissolved, was dedicated to St. Peter. St. Peter holds the keys, in which under the abstract story, Jesus told St. Peter that upon this rock, I'll build my church. Everybody understand that?
Follow.
He said, upon this rock, I'll build my church. Westminster was built by King Edgar the Peaceful and St. Dunstan and dedicated to who? St. Peter.
St. Peter.
You're looking at and St. Peter represents the keys. We said the Roman Catholic Church, let's go through it. Let's see. It said, everybody see that?
Follow.
The Pope, Roman Pontiff, Sovereign Pontiff, and the Bishop of Rome. Pope Gregory the First was the Bishop of Rome. It says, it's the Bishop of Rome, historically the Patriarch of Rome, head of the worldwide Catholic Church, and is also served as the head of the state or sovereign of the Vatican City State since the 8th century. From a Catholic viewpoint, the primacy of the Bishop of Rome is largely derived from his role as the apostolic successor to St. Peter, to whom primacy was conferred by Jesus Christ, who gave Peter the keys of heaven. Everybody heard that?
Follow.
So if Peter was given the keys to heaven and the Roman Catholic Church supposed to be the successors of St. Peter's, is that a violation of the law?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
How you gonna give something away that didn't belong to you?
Yep.
How you gonna take something from something that didn't belong to you? King Edgar dedicated the church to St. Peter because Jesus Christ said that it's upon this rock I'll build my church. St. Peter lived in the year 1 AD. What year is it in the year 1 AD in the Gregorian calendar? Did that year exist, Brother Birdie?
No.
Why?
You said 1 AD?
Yeah, that it exists.
No, because in the
Gregorian
Roman
year.
calendar is that 960?
That's 960. No, 950.
950.
Okay.
950. So if Pope, if Pope Peter, St. Peter lived in 1 AD, and 1 AD under Gregorian year is 960 AD, and AD means Annus Dominius, in the year of our Lord. So what's St. Peter talking to his book?
It would have to be.
What St. Peter, a saint who's supposed to have been the Roman Catholic Church are successors of, right?
Correct.
And the Roman Catholic Church worship a spook Jesus Christ, am I right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And the St. Peter's are sent under the spook calendar, Gregorian calendar, because we know it never existed. Why? Because if there was no Pope Gregory the First, how can there be the 13th? Am I right?
You're right.
Okay. So if Pope Gregory the First didn't exist, And we know that the calendar for Pope Gregory and all the Pope Gregories was created to correlate to the date 1 AD. And we know that can't exist because in our year it's 950. And if the year 950 and you Saint Peter lived in the year 950, since there ain't no 1 AD, then that meant Saint Peter must have been around with King Edgar the Peaceful. Am I right?
Correct.
Correct.
It had to be, because why did King Edgar and Saint Dunstan dedicate the church to Saint Peter?
I mean,
And if he dedicated Westminster Abbey to St. Peter, then how the Roman Catholic Church under the Bishop of Rome, i.e. the Pope, came to be successors of the Pope? You can't be successors of them keys that was not created for you. And the word key don't mean keys. Key means key point. Right? The key point, that clue, that X that marks the spot. Everybody understand?
Follow.
Am I losing anybody?
No.
I hope not. All right. Let's go here. Let's go right here. The very learned and useful opinion of Mr. Justice Gray speaking for the court in United States versus 1 Kimmel Ark established that at common law of England in the United States, the rule with respect to nationality was that of just soil, that birth within the limits of the jurisdiction of the crown and of the United States as successors of the crown, fixed nationality is in that there could be no change in this rule of law except by statute, and that by the statutes of Queen Anne, extended by the statutes of King George II, all children born out of the legions of the crown of England, whose father were or should be natural born subjects of the crown of England or of Great Britain at the time of the birth of such children respectively, were deemed natural born subjects of that kingdom to all intent and purpose whatsoever. All right. So now they just said in town of Paulette that the United States dissolved the Church of England. Right? So if you dissolved it, that means all the assets that you dissolved, which was belong to the Church of England, which is the crown. Because the United States has said in this case that the United States is successor to the crown. So that means the crown is the Church of England, and the Church of England had to be sitting on crown land, and crown land can only be entailed. And if it's entailed, that means that it can't be free and simple. And the high form of ownership in America or the United States is free and simple. How we know that? That's in the statute. Everybody follow?
Follow.
Okay, let's go here. This is the land doctrine, Martin versus Leslie of Waldale. We already been through this. For only this purpose for those who are feeling, to show that these arguments are called conclusive presumptions at law. The law of evidence in the court of law is governed by the law of presumption. You got two types of presumptions. You got rebuttal presumptions, which is nothing more than the presumption of innocence to proven guilty. Then you got conclusive presumptions. Like I said, conclusive is concrete. Concrete is called irrebuttable. You don't even need facts to prove a concrete presumption of law. Presumption of law is proven by the law of evidence. And facts and pursuant to the presumption of law must be tried by a jury. Why?
Rebuttal and conclusive.
Rebuttal and conclusive presumption. Two types. And the two types of presumption, rebuttal and conclusive, conclusive has basic facts. Rebuttal presumption has no basic facts. Why? Because you're proving innocent to prove me guilty. So in order to prove something based off presumption of innocence, you got to bring what? Facts.
Evidence.
Which is evidence. All right. Now that's governed by the law, and all law is specific. Because we know according to Smith, Alabama, there's only one type of law. That's the common law of England, which was adopted by all the states and applied as their local law. What is local law? Municipality law. So every municipality within the United States, of every state in the United States, the municipal laws should be the laws of England, i.e. common law. Why? Because the states themselves are not considered for diversity issue. Because everybody incorporates into the state by way of personifying, incorporating, impersonating, impersonating by incarnating to something that you didn't have a right to incarnate in. Why? Because of this. Grant in question of Charles II, the Duke of York. What's that music?
Yeah, he's not muted. I think his brother,
Who's that?
It was muted.
Okay. This is Martin versus Leslie Wardell, which is called the public trust doctrine. All lands are held in the public trust. We just went over step 2 quick. We just went over that. We know that everything operating here in North America, if it don't fit the description of that person, i.e. that the grantor wanted to fit, then it's null and void. We're proving it here. A grant in question of Charles II to the Duke of York that was the province of New Jersey. Province of New Jersey, prior to called the province of New Jersey, was called Nederland under the Dutch. Charles II became King Charles when he came out of exile from what they call the English Civil War. You had the English Civil War, you had the War of the Three Kingdoms, and you had the Glorious Revolution. All this was under what they call the House of Swords. Right? James, Charles I was executed. Charles I was executed. It was left up to Charles II. Charles II gave a grant out to Duke of York, who gave it to the Paulette, George Coleridge, and John Berkeley, which prior to it became New Jersey, it was the flag team behind us. This is what was called Jersey. Republic of Jersey. When Charles II became Restoration of the Crown, it was called Jersey, which was part of the largest Channel Island. New Jersey, the peninsula, in case those of you didn't know that. So we're dealing with a grant given by Charles II. Before we read this grant, let's look at this right here. Tenure Abolition Act. Very important. Charles II was restored to the crown in 1660. Listen to the verbiage. Everybody pay attention to the verbiage. From 1660 to 1664, how many years is that?
4 years.
4 years. The Tenure Abolition Act of 1660, sometimes known as the Statutes of Tenure. Pay close attention to that word. The Statutes of Tenure was an act of the Parliament of England. It didn't say Ireland, it didn't say Scotland, it didn't say Great Britain, it didn't say United Kingdom. It said England, which changed the nature of the several types of legal tenure, land tenure in England. It stated that all tenures hereafter to be created by the King's Majesty, his heirs or successors, upon any gift or grant of manors, land tenement, or hereditaments of an estate of inherited at the common law, should be in free and common succors, and it should be adjudged to be in free and common succors only, and not by knight service or capitite, and should be discharged of all worship value or forfeiture or marital library, primer, season, ouster le may a depro, fire, chevalier, and peripheralia, any law, statute, or reservation up to the contrary thereof, in any wise is notwithstanding. So this was the act by Charles II in 1660. Parliament of England. All right, let's go here. Charles II. Everybody pay close attention. We're reading this. This is the Department of the State of New Jersey. Everybody see this? You guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
It says, this is on New Jersey website. The volume recorded book of Robert Barclay, property governor of East Jersey in 1684. The volume in this most significant item included in the Christi acquisition. Acquisition means the transfer of land, containing the transcripts of land grants, legal cases, correspondence with official, including William's pen, and a record of the proceedings of East Jersey lower properties during 1682 to 1684. The volume originally also held the 5 mats purchased separately at the auction. King Charles II patent of 12th March 1664 granted a vast expanse of the eastern seaboard to his brother James, Duke of York. The Duke subsequently granted authority for the land and governance of New Jersey to John, Lord Berkeley, and Sir George Carteret. New Jersey first colonial governor Philip Carteret asserted ownership of Staten Island based in the language of the 1664 grant to Berkeley and Carteret. New York governors disagreed, and the question was not fully resolved until 1834. In this 1683 letters to the colonists, the king commanded that the planters and inhabitants of East Jersey to submit and yield all due obedience to the laws of the government of the new proprietors. Everybody seen that? Everybody witnessed for themselves. This is on the website. We know that Charles II in 1616, after the English Civil War, after the Glorious Revolution, after the War of the Three Kingdoms, he was restored from exile in 1660. This is when New Jersey was under what we call Dutch, New Netherland. It encompasses the territories of Maine, New Jersey, East Jersey, West Jersey, Connecticut, if I'm mistaken, Rhode Island, and New York. All this was this part of the territory under New Netherland. When Charles came to power in 1660, all this was subject to his. Then he gave out grants to Duke of York. We just read that. Everybody read it, right?
Mm-hmm.
All those grants were given back to the crown because they were ran by corporations under the Church of England, which would consist of Roman Catholic and Protestants, because the House of Stuarts were all Roman Catholic Protestants, all created through the Episcopalian Church, as well as the branch to propagation of the gospel, which all extended from the Church of England, because the policy of those churches was the Episcopalian Church, which was founded by the Church of England as founded by the so-called Pope Gregory I, which we know didn't exist because there's no council to support it. So the only person that can fit that tenure was Henry VIII. And Henry VIII took the estate through the War of the Roses, which were going through what we call the Wars of the Edwardian Wars. The Edwardian Wars existed from Edward I to Edward III. This is when all those descendants of John Gaunt made their attempt to infiltrate on the estate. This is the reason why, according to the estates being transferred under the Statutes under Intel, Henry II, son of Godfrey V Count of Anjou and Eleanor Aquitaine, who was also Roman Catholic, Godfrey stated that the agnatic bloodline will only stem through Godfrey descendants. And I'm a descendant of Godfrey because my last name is Jefferson. When you go back to this Tenure Act, all courts of wars and libraries. Courts of wars deal with warship. All those who became subject to the United States and the British Crown became under war courts, which you have today, as well as the laws governing libraries. Libraries deal with your titles of nobility. That was stripped from you. But they were abolished in 1660 because all the titles and abilities, as well as those who were subject to the parens patriae, father of the nation, must go back to the king. But the king was father of the nation, parens patriae. Everybody follow?
Follow.
Okay, let's move forward. So since we read the tenure of abolition, which said all the tenures hereafter be created by the king or other person, they just said masteries and heirs and successors. These are the other persons upon any gift, grant, or manors, land tenements, heritage of any estate of inheritance at the common law should be free and common soakers. Let's go a little further. Section 3 or 4 of that act is under Henry VIII. Therefore, the courts of wars and levies established in 1540, which had been responsible for the revenue collection under a feudal tenure system. So even Henry VIII abolished feudal tenure, and all the assets that were sitting there was held in a trust. Everybody follow?
Follow.
Now this was under Henry VIII and Charles II. That is said, Charles II. Charles II was ruling in 1660 and in 1664. We know that the province of New Jersey under Queen Anne, going back to those houses of Stuart, was established in 1664. We know on March 12, 1664, prior to Charles II coming back to the throne, it was under the authority of the Dutch, which encompassed the territory, as I said, Maine, New York, East Jersey, and West Jersey, which was actually one, Jersey, Connecticut, and New York. Everybody follow?
Follow.
Now, we're dealing with Charles II. Charles II was a Roman Catholic, descendant of Charles I, who changed to Catholicism on his deathbed. All right? So now what this has this to do with us? Let's go to the Revised Statute 46:3-1. Property. This is under property. Everybody. We know property is either two types, fee and simple and entail. Fee and simple, you can change, give to anybody, as we just showed you in the Section K. Entail, it has to be an heir or a male. And that goes by operation of law. And that was held in the trust when our church was dissolved by Henry VIII. That's why it's called the Section K. He who is alive can only be talking about a natural person, am I right? Because corporations are not alive, am I right? 46:3-1. Everybody pay attention to that Tenure Act by Charles II in 1660, because this is 4 years later. New Jersey Revised Statute, we know this is a statute of Parliament. It ain't just a New Jersey Revised Statute, because statutes are revised through legislation. Legislations are created by way of that Constitution. And the original Constitution of New Jersey, by way of its reception clause, said that it was for the reconciliation of Great Britain. And once that's done, once the colonies come back under the protection of Great Britain, that Constitution is no more. It's in their Constitution. Now, this is the legislation statute from that Constitution. Govern feudal tenure, abolished. This as stated in the 1660 Act by Charles II. It's stated here. Feudal tenure estates and the incidents thereof taken away, discharged, and abolished from and after March 12, 1664. It says the same thing, only thing they left out was Charles II. Because March 12, 1664 is when he came to the crown. Prior to that, it was under the Dutch control. Am I right, everybody?
Correct.
We just read it right here. King Charles passed on 12 March 1664. That's when he came back to his crown in 1660. He was warring with the Dutch at that time. It was called the Anglo and Dutch Wars. Everybody follow?
Follow.
So this is New Jersey Revised Statute that says that March 12th, the same date in that New Jersey statute, in that statute dealing with on the website, that prior to March 12th, 1664, that all the land, all the feudal tenure land will be abolished. Okay, let's go back to Section 2. That was the Section 1. Let's go to Section 2. The tenures of honors, manors, lands, tenements, and hereditaments, or estates of inheritance at the common law. Let's go back here. So lands, tenements, hereditaments of any estate of inheritance of common law should be in free common success. The tenures and honors of manors, land, tenements, or hereditaments, or of state of inheritance at any common law held either of the King of England or any other person. And that statute said heir successors. Those heirs or successors are the person. Why? Because they're made up of the body of politics. Why? Because right after it said other person, it's their body of politics. Right? Then it said corporate. So the only way the body of politics can come alive is by what? Personifying, incorporating, incarnating, same word, through a certificate of incorporation, because you need a certificate of incorporation at any time before July 4th, 1776. New Jersey declared their independence in July 2nd, 1776. In that constitution, they said that it was supposed to be a reconciliation of Great Britain. Didn't they say that?
Mm-hmm.
But what happened on July 4th, 1776? They went along with it anyhow. They separated anyhow. That was contrary to that constitution. It's said right here in the statute that you violated this constitution with the creation of this very statute, because the land was to be held in free and common soaking. How do we know that? Let's go to 6 and 6. All gifts, grants, conveyance made prior to July 4th, 1776 of the estate of inheritance by letter patent. All those who were colonists had letter patent. We already know what that means. I didn't say. Under the great seal of the state, or any other manner by the state, by legislative thereof, or by the commissioner or agent of a forfeited estate, or by other lawful competent authority under the state, shall remain allodial and not feudal, or shall forever be and continue and be and free and pure allodium only, forever discharged of all feudal and tenure and interest thereof, and all other services whatsoever. Okay, if that don't convince y'all, let's go here. Section 10. From after June 12, 1795, that's when we know the United States came in being to what? 1789.
Mm-hmm.
The Naturalization Act came in what? 1790. Now you got an act in 1795 disqualifying what they did in 1790 and 1789. So any citizens who were made citizens from the Act of 1789 and who were made citizens by way of naturalization in 1790 by way of the creation of the United States in 1789 are by way of law null and void. Because the land is allodial. 46:3-2 said that King of England or person, which is heir, successors, body politics, or corporate. The only thing we had to do was fill a requirement of incarnate. That's what we call, in the spook world, the resurrection. Everybody understand?
Follow.
All right. Let's go here. Walt's first taxes commission. Did we do this already?
I haven't seen that one yet.
I have something to show y'all. I ain't gonna show y'all. I'm gonna wait. This is for an added studies. How everybody like the lesson so far?
It's perfect.
Love it.
Great lesson, great lesson.
Yes, it's beautiful.
Each one complement the next. I love case law now. Love it. Okay, here we go. This is Walt versus Tax Commission. Now, Walt versus Tax Commission was a real estate agent who got upset because as the religious clause, free exercise of religion protected by the 14th Amendment, he was upset that because the church was, there was a separation of church and state, and he was upset that legislation was giving religious societies tax exemption. And the reason why he was, matter of fact, just read it for yourself. It says the essence of the appellant contention was that the New York City Tax Commission grant an exemption to church property indirectly requires the appellant to make a contribution to religious bodies and thereby violate provisions prohibiting establishment of religion under the First Amendment, which under the 14th Amendment is binding on all states. He's saying that because of the he wasn't dealing with it from a religious perspective, he had the obligation to pay taxes as well. But the religious side didn't have to pay tax. Now look what it says here. There originally was no separation of church and state. Has never been a separation of church and state. Why is that? Because prior to the creation of the state and church, there was only a state church. So there was no separation, can't be no separation because it was left in the trust. It said, it is sufficient to note that for men who wrote the religious clause of the First Amendment, that establishment of religion connoted sponsorship, financial support, and active involvement of the sovereign in the religious activity. I'm gonna read it again. In Walt versus Tax Commission, which is involving somebody, a real estate agent, didn't want to pay no taxes, don't want to pay taxes, but he was forced to pay taxes to a religious society because it was held in trust. He claimed to have religious exemption, being that church and state was separated. And the court told him there ain't no separate the church and state in regards to the framers of the Constitution, in regards to religion exemption under religious clause, First Amendment protected by the 14th Amendment. It said, it is sufficient to note that for the men who wrote the religious clause of the First Amendment, the establishment of a religion connoted sponsorship and financial support and an active involvement of the sovereign in the religious activity. In England and in some colonies at the time of the separation in 1776, the Church of England was sponsored and supported by the crown as a state. I'll read it again. In England, now we already read the city of Paulette, town of Paulette. We know the United States dissolved the Church of England, right? Our church. We know that because the churches that were dissolved and the ones that were reinstituted were the ones we're dealing with now. And we already know that the ones that we're dealing with now were not beneficiary to the trust. We know that. Even the United States was not successful to the trust because according to a propagation of the gospel prior to the Revolutionary War, even when you declared your independence in 1776, according to New Jersey by statute, it said that this land will forever remain allodial. Everybody confirmed that. We just went to them. Why? It was confirmed by the king or some other person, i.e. heirs and successors, as well as the body of politics and corporate. So we met all those requirements. Why? Because we're governed under civil law, not ecclesiastical law. All the churches that function now are ecclesiastical. Why? Because they dissolved the civil law because it was ran by a corporation, so i.e. the crown. And it's just said here in England, and we know we're in England because New Jersey by statute says King of England. So they said it in duality, the king in England, which is the state. In England and in some colonies, but we know the colonies are not the heirs of England. We know that, right? They're not heirs.
Follow.
You colonies, now called states, which have their own body of politics separate from the body politics of England, right? So the England and some colonies at the time of the separation in 1776. That means in 1776, there was already a body politics here and a new body politics created. Everybody follow?
Follow.
Keep that. I gotta keep thinking. I'm sorry, parakeeting. In England and some colonies at the time of the separation of 1776, the Church of England was sponsored and supported by the crown as a state or established church. In other countries, establishment meant sponsorship by the sovereign of the Lutheran or the Catholic Church. So it's telling you that the Lutheran Church, the Catholic Church, the Protestant Church, the Episcopalian Church, all those churches that were established based off the grant given by the king must be done based on sponsorship, because you were not the original beneficiary to the trust that was established by the grantor. And as a result of that, the town of Paulette said the king held it in trust. How we know that? As we see in 46:3-2. 46:3-1. All the land remained in the Lolio in that trust until somebody fit that description by way of incorporating as 46:3-2. How we know that? Let's go back here. (46:3-46:7-5). So dealing with property. Conveyed to religious society prior to incorporation, valid after incorporation. Everybody knows what that means, right? Conveying, transfer, acquisition to religious societies prior to the incorporation, valid after incorporation. So that means that once you incorporate, all the conveyance of property that belongs to the religious society is able to be conveyed after the incorporation. Everybody understand that? Well, it's going to even go in depth. Where any conveyance of real estate has been made, executed, and recorded in favor of any religious society, keyword recorded, association or corporation of the state. All the states, societies, associations, nothing more than corporation. It just said it. Did they mention corporation soul? No. Why would they mention corporation soul? Because that meant that Great Britain is back. Exactly. They mentioned it here in 46:3-2 because it said King of England, body of politics. That's the corporation soul. They just didn't call it that. Everybody understand? So once you recognize that in 46:3-2, pursuant to 46:3-1, governing the property that was held in the trust, and the only way it can be transferred back to the grantees is by way of trustees. 16:1-28. Our right to incorporate trustees of religious society. Our act to incorporate trustees of religious society for property held in religious society and corporation in place thereof. These are these corporations right here. They hold the property, and they're going to continue to hold these properties because they're not administering the estate as the trustee of a religious society, fitting the description as set forth by the grantor, i.e. the king. I can't believe I just said that. Wow. All right. So it says where any conveyance of real estate has been made, executed, and recorded in favor of any religious society, association, or corporation of this state as the grantee therein, and such religious society, corporation, or association has failed to record and file the proper certificate of incorporation and the manner prescribed by Title 16, corporation and association, religious, or by any law enforced at the time when any society, corporation, or association was incorporated or attempted to be incorporated until after the making execution of such conveyance and recording thereof. Any and all such conveyance shall be as valid and effectual in law as if made, executed, and delivered to such religious society, association, or corporation after the filing and recording of the proper certificate of incorporation. And that if it was made at
right here, society, association of
corporation prior to the recording and filing of certificate of corporation as aforesaid. No. Valid and effectual in law as if made, executed, and delivered to such religious society, association, or corporation after the filing and recording of the proper certificate of corporation as if made to such religious society, association, or corporation during the period of its corporate existence. And the record of any such conveyance so made to any such religious society, association, or corporation prior to the recording and filing of its certificate of corporation as aforesaid shall be of the same force and effect as if the conveyance had been made, executed, and recorded subsequent to the recording and filing of such certificate of incorporation, and should be admissible in evidence as fully and completely for all purposes as if such conveyance had been made and recorded during the corporate existence of such society, association, or corporation. Now that's under property, and it speaks about Title 16. Let's go to Title 16. Because this is where we incorporated under Title 16. You got Title 14 and Title 16. Title 14, corporations. Title 16, corporation, association, religious society. So there's two types, corporation and corporation society. What's the difference? Let's go through it. 16, 1, 7, 8, and 9. And this is in closing. Parliamentary legislation 2021, New Jersey revised statute, corporations and associations of religious society, not just corporations, partnerships, limited liability corporations. Remember, religious societies as well are corporations. Corporations sold because they're ecclesiastical, they're spooks. So even a corporation sold head of state, still spooks, abstract, which means that they are corporation aggregate. Ecclesiastical headed by bishops of Rome, contrast to ecclesiastical in the civil law, which is not a corporation aggregate or corporation soul, because it must be headed by a natural person who sits in that office as the corporation soul, i.e. the crown. And then as a result of that, all gifts, because these are dealt with birthright, our gift, legacies, etc., all denotes to our birthright. Everybody follow?
Follow.
And we're still dealing with conveyance or acquisition of that land in regards to property held by religious society, as we read in 46:7-5 under the title property. Now we're going to go to the title governing religious society in regards to property to qualify in closing. 16:1:143-7. All those who are viewing this, please. This is not based on theosophical or philosophical arguments. That's abstract. That's called rebuttal or presumption presumption of innocence. Everybody claim to be innocent and want a ruling in their favor without bringing forth any basic fact to support your presumption of innocence in regard to the evidence in regard to your claim. We're bringing concrete evidence in lieu of our presumption that's not a presumption of innocence, but it's based off conclusive, concrete, which is rooted in what they call basic fact, which is irrebuttable, irrefutable. Why? Because this is legislation, law, not theosophical law or philosophical law, but law, common law. Every gift, grant, legacy, bequest, or device in trust or otherwise vested or contingent in possession or expectancy, meaning to come about, contained in a will or other instrument made before or after the consolidation. When I read this, consider 46:3-1, 2, and 3, which deals with feudal tenure being abolished and all the land being under lordio under free and common sucres, because this involves that. Every gift, grant, legacy, bequest, or device in trust or otherwise vested or contingent in possession of expectancy contained in any will. Contained in any will or other instrument made before or after the consolidation to or for any other inuring or occurring to either constituent corporation shall vest in, inure, and accrue to the benefits of the consolidation corporation as effectually as though made to it and in the name and for its use and benefit, subject to all the states, trust, interests, and conditions opposed in relation thereto. And every such will or other instrument shall take effect subject to the provision of this act and any consolidation hereunder, so far as may be necessary to accomplish the foregoing. The separate corporate entity and name of each constituent corporation shall be continued for the purpose of enabling it to accept and receive every such gift, grant, legacy, bequest, or device as fully as though the consolidation had not been effected. And the trustees, chapter, or other governing body of the consolidated corporation, i.e. body politic, shall for such purpose be deemed to be the trustees, chapter, or other governing body of the constituent corporation immediately upon the accrual or receipt of every such gift or grant, legacy, bequest, or device, or the proceeds thereof. The title to the same shall become vested in the consolidated corporation, subject to all estates, trust, interests, and conditions imposed in relation thereto. Let's go to point 8. What we just read, 7? Yeah. Let's go to 8. Point 8. Nothing herein contained shall impair, annul, or affect, and remember, this is New Jersey Revised Statute 2021. Nothing herein contained shall impair, annul, or affect any vested right, charter right, because people would be sure, well, y'all don't have a charter. Y'all got a certificate of corporation. That's what they say. Okay, let's clarify that. Nothing herein contains shall impair, annul, or affect any vested right, charter right, privileges, exemptions, immunities, powers, prerogatives, franchise, or advantages heretofore obtained and actually used or enjoyed by either constituent corporation under the authority of any act of this state. That means before we incorporated and after we incorporated, none of these rights can be inherited. Neither constituent corporation shall be dissolved, nor, remember, perpetual. Neither constituent corporation shall be dissolved, nor shall its existence be terminated by reason of the consolidation, but it shall continue to exist in the consolidated corporation, which should succeed to and continue to have and enjoy unimpaired the several rights, charter rights, privileges, exemptions, immunities, powers, prerogatives, franchise, and advantages of the constituent corporations consistently with the provisions of this act and of its consolidation agreement. Everybody understand? And in closing, section 9. Oh, 9. Well, you're still talking about a charter. You got a certificate of incorporation. Section 9. The consolidation corporation shall have any and may exercise all powers conferred by the respective certificate of incorporation or charter of the constituent corporation, whether by a Title 14, Corporation General, and by a Title 16, Corporation and Association and Religious. And in particular, the power conferred by Article 5 of Chapter of Title 16 of the revised statute, so far as the same are not inconsistent with this act, are necessarily or convenient to the furtherance of its objects, and are in concordance with the doctrine, government, discipline, and uses of the church or religious denominations, to the jurisdiction of which the constituent corporation was subject. And it didn't say citizen, it says subject. And it shall have, among other powers, the power to invest, change investments of, and reinvest its endowments and funds in such investments, whether or not prescribed by statute in such manner as shall deem proper. And with that, I digress. Archbishop, you got the last word. You got the floor. Queen, you want to say?
Just another powerful lesson. A lot of powerful points the King went over today in regards to the New Jersey Revised Statutes and talking about all the different popes and St. Peter and the Reformation of the Church of England. Just a lot of, studying to do. For all our listeners, come on in. And with that, I digress.
Remember, y'all, this is all up here. This is here. Remember the movie we just talking about, Book of Eli.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It's going to have a time, and they burned those books in the 21st century. Key point. That wasn't back in those days, book burning. They talk that movie was in the 21st century. They're in San Francisco, California. That's where the Bering Strait is when they came over through the Bering Strait, all these so-called Native Americans who were nothing more than farmers. Archbishop.
There you have it, brothers and sisters from the Kingdom of England, Empire of Albion, or Great Britain, however you want to call it. The King, once again, has done a marvelous job, just reiterating to you the importance of our body politic, going all the way back to the time of the Tudors, you know, going to Henry VIII, Elizabeth I, all the way to the Stuarts, letting you know, like I said, how not only they've been trying to usurp, but also trying to preserve for the true English heirs, if you actually knew what they were doing. Even though the so-called United States had dissolved the Church of England, they did not dissolve us, you know, as in totality, because the consciousness was still there. It just wasn't being taught or reiterated due to the situations that was going on the planet at that time. Like the King said, you must now have this information within you, because what we're dealing with today is the information is being erased just as fast as we're trying to bring it back into your consciousness, because many of your brothers and sisters don't have the attention span to really do their due diligence to go and research most of the stuff that we're speaking of. And so like the King has said, Wikipedia is like baby food. And eventually, as you see, you got to grow up, because what happens, they take away baby food. You can't eat baby food no more. You got to be able to eat grown food. And like I said, all grown folks' food don't taste good. Like I said, it's an acquired taste. So for you to be truly who you authentically is an acquired taste, because it don't feel good. You know, it's not always like honey at first, you know, that comes after a while. Once you become healed and your body become used to it, then it's like honey. But if you've been eating artificial foods based off of these fake entities, which they continue to cram into you, so that way you can't pick this information up, then yeah, this information is going to not taste good for you. But like they say, all medicine, you know, medicine's supposed to be bitter, you know, it's supposed to alter those taste buds. So therefore it can kill those parasites within you. And that's what this information is doing, is heating you up, is making you feel some type of way, so that way it can burn off those parasites who have been keeping you held back from this truth. Once again, like it's shown, when it comes down to our body politic, if you don't know this consciousness or this information to be able to speak it, it don't have to be verbatim, but it must be able to be spoken in your words that still goes back to the truth, then you're going to have a hard time being able to stand on this when it comes down to being able to prove that you are part of this King's body politic. What the King has shown from the Statutes of Abolition, it's never been repealed. You know, these stuff is still applicable, and all of the laws of Parliament, the ones that specifically pertain to us, have been incorporated into your modern day statutes, what the King have shown with the Statutes of New Jersey. So if you have your eyes open and knew what he was showing you, he was showing you that the Parliament of England was going to be resurrected based off of the King being able to articulate what it is that he needs to know to be able to prove to us what he have already proven day in and day out since he have came back into consciousness, regarding that this is still England. England hasn't left. And as you as being heirs and constituent trustees, once you come back to the proper understanding of who you are, then all of the things you have been fighting for so long will return upon you. But in the meantime, you're going to have to continue to keep putting up the fight against Rome. And mostly we see this fight as a spiritual fight. You're going to have to be fighting against your elders. You're going to be fighting against your brothers and sisters, your mom and dad, your lovers, all of that, because it was all orchestrated for you to get yourself right and prepared to come back home into the true visible church of Christ, which our true hero has reincarnated, named King Clifford Jefferson. So with that being said, I digress and I leave the rest of the closing to our brothers and sisters on the panel. Please stay tuned to future services for those who are ready to come in. Email the church at thirdtemplechurch@gmail.com. Donations are humbly and gracefully accepted, because as you see, this fight that we're putting up, it takes time. And with time, it requires a lot of our resources to be expended. So therefore we can do our due diligence. But like we said, everything is going to be accounted for, as well as those who want to contribute. Like I said, we will know who you are by name, and the ledgers and stuff will be maintained. So therefore, when the time comes for us to close our doors permanently, we know who to call to let them know, like, hey, it's time to come on home. So with that being said, like I said, do your studies, make sure you keep your body clean, make sure you're saying your pallials to your loved ones, and be prepared, because we're dealing with some trying times on planet Albion, what you call planet Earth. And we do love you, and we do love our brothers and sisters who are having a hard time put the pieces together. But if you put your trust in us, the same way you put your trust inside the fictitious world, and we're literally physically, visibly showing you that we're here, then you should have no reason why you can't come home. So with that being said, I love you.
Well said, Archbishop. Esquire Burgess from the House of Burgess. Greetings.
Greetings, family. Another one for the books. I hope y'all, like King always say, it ain't no skipping the line. Understanding this timeline, so you go apply these politics with the king's two bodies, so you can be able to time travel in between this 1,000-year span to comprehend and keep up with what it is that we're saying. Come home, family. Come do this great work with us.
Well said, well said, well said. Countess Walker from the House of Walker.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. I am excited about this lesson. This is something new, the 10-Year Abolition Act of 1660, and it corresponds directly to the New Jersey Revised Statute. So, it's like A to B to C. So I'm excited to dig right in. I got all my notes, and parliamentary law and legislative law is exactly the same that we see in each state legislatures. I'm in the New York state, and in the New York state legislature, it says the whole state of New York is crown land right here in the state of New York. And so just like Archbishop said, Wikipedia is baby food. So we live in a time where, the New York State Legislature is thousands and thousands and thousands of pages, and it's available just at the click of your mouse and, right on your phone. And you can read the legislative acts, which all corresponds to the common law and to parliamentary acts. And I digress.
Well said, well said. I like the fact that you mentioned A equals B and B equals C. The Queen was reading the Statutes Act, and they was breaking down the common recovery, and they were talking about A did this to B and B did this to C. She was like, how the heck am I supposed to figure out who the hell A and B and C is? And I told, well, that was just an example, you know what I'm saying? So we're giving the example that they give. We're actually living it, you know what I'm saying? And it can be best told by living it than giving an example, because an example is just a copy and ain't nothing like the real. So well said. Countess Harris, good to see you. I'm glad you was able to make it, Countess Harris.
That's Brother Harris.
Oh, that's Brother Harris? Oh, I apologize. Greetings, Brother Harris. Oh, well, I'll get to you. We dealing with that Countess first. Countess out.
Greetings, greetings. I just want to touch on specifically the Gregorian calendar. It's very familiar to people in our time right now. We do everything by the Gregorian calendar, never question it. But we have to question it now because it only goes back a few hundred years. Prior to that, we were under a whole different calendar, which was the Berber calendar. And that, my friends, is where our story began. These revised statutes, I was not comfortable reading them and studying them in the past because it was so confusing to myself. It was painstakingly to actually look through this and try to understand it. But as I become more familiar, every time I come up here on the King's Bench, every time I, have private talks with Sister Venus, we're slowly uncovering things that we never knew before about the history of the Westminster English Church, and this is so important. This is so key. It is so vital that we began to understand this work, this body of work, because it was taken apart and put together like a well-crafted puzzle, and all we have to do is just take our time, come back, start learning the lessons that we are here to teach you today, and ask any questions. The door is open, and our people are ready for you. Thank you, and I digress.
Well said, well said.
Yeah.
Countess Middleton.
Yes, peace. I think the main thing is that, for me particular, is a change of mindset that's necessary to become an heir. Okay, and in terms of the responsibilities, and even knowing the terminology and the glossary, I made a list of the words that were being used. And so me creating my own glossary to really have an understanding about that is important. And again, I think the strength is always this new timeline and converting times to the Berber calendar. I think that's a definite key. And in putting these things in organization, we can go back to these religious societies and what their original intention was, and how to bring them back to that original intention in spite of all the chaos perpetrated on them. And I digress.
Well said, beautifully said, well compacted, and from what you just said, people will learn to love instead of hate. A lot of times the confusion and the ability to not be able to have time to accept, and the doubt is a result of the understanding. The understanding, once you understand, then you don't have a problem telling somebody and explaining to them what they did not understand. But it's your choice. You can be a fool or you can be a leader. It's your choice. So well said, Countess Middleton. Brother Means from the House of Means.
Yes, sir. Thank you once again. Sit here and listen over and over, as Countess Allen was mentioning, as we go over lessons. The whole purpose of this is understanding status, as Queen stated a few weeks ago, is the lesson of the day. This is all about status, nationality, and the change from which they created from the 6th century on up to this 21st century. They've been doing it over and over again to try to take our places. But to be able to see it clearly with the statutes, we're protecting us to reform and resist, as the lesson before stated, to be able to stand up on our own 2 feet with aggression and complete confidence is remarkable. This lesson today, again, it transitions us back to remind ourselves and let our DNA remember who we are and where we come from. The way that you put it together from transitioning through the STQ, they had to create the corporation for them to exist and operate in the vehicle they are, to assume our trust, null and void, to reposition themselves, to operate now today, and to cast us out. But for us to come back here into our body politic as one mind, soul, to accomplish what needs to be done, to pass this on to our heirs, for us to exist in eternity, is a blessing within itself. And the way that you taught this today, it paints the picture to be part of something way bigger than we all have ever imagined. But to learn to, as Council Middleton said, to articulate your conversations, to be placed amongst the best, and remembering that you are heirs of monarchs. We have to have a calmness to be able to sit back, read, absorb this, and then be able to reiterate it back out as you stand in the positions that we are in today. It's hard times right now. For those who've been watching, I can't understand how you do not want to become who you are. How can you not do your genealogy and understand and respect your ancestors? It is impossible now to even achieve anything in his life today, because everything is based on corporations. You are incorporated through a church body that has more power than any institution in the world if you come home to this church, if you understand what you're reading or what you're hearing in today's and previous lessons. I won't hold any longer. I know I can get long-winded at times when I get in this emotion, so.
You don't mind. Well said, Brother Ming. Like I said, when you talk, brother, it's always fluent and steady vibration. So we really appreciate you, Noble. And we're trying to make means to make sure that the link, the connection, as well as the stability is always open to you, and that you'll be privy to all that is going on from henceforth. So well said. Brother Scott from the House of Scott, Noble One.
Greetings, King, greetings.
Greetings.
Well, King, my comments are kind of for the people that are watching and listening. Everybody on the panel, Sister Walker and Archbishop, Brother Means, Sister Allen, all you guys have kind of been studying this for years. I know most of you come from the Moorish school of thought, and I started that, but my interaction with that was very limited. But I did learn some things. Everything that the King is speaking of and everything that we have been learning here on the King's bench was actually confusing to me as well. I didn't really start understanding how I would go with Burgess inside the courtrooms. And that's really where I started understanding. Some of us on the panel have active lawsuits and active court cases that everybody, we're trying to defend certain things. So you're not going to be able to defend yourself or speak on the King's behalf without knowing this information. So I know some people think, we just get on here and play church and we pretend about that we have kings and queens and that type of thing, because it's been said to myself and Brother Burgess, out in the populace.
Yeah.
But I mean, they need not make no mistake that this is real and this information is pertinent and necessary. I have a lawsuit that's coming up with child support. And I know for a fact that I'm going to not only be fighting the whole state of Georgia, we're going to be fighting the whole country with this. This is billions of dollars that that body of politics is used to gaining from people that don't know who they are or their rights. So just take heed to what it is. It's impossible almost not to believe what you're hearing, because you can research it. As Sister Allen said, by the click of a mouse, you can go ahead and find out what you need to find out. But I just wanted to say that. And King, I always appreciate you. Queen, you're awesome. Everybody on the panel, I got love for you guys. I know I don't reach out like I need to, but I will. I'll never forget about you guys. And thank you very much. I really appreciate the time.
You're welcome, Brother Scott from the House of Scott. Brother Moonday from the House of Moonday.
Very informational, marvelous lesson. Much needed. Like I said, I'm still trying to catch up, but I'm in the right place. Like I always say, I'm in the right place. And God for your time and let me be part of this.
You got it, brother.
Everybody.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Brother Harris from the House. Finish. Well said, Brother Moonday. Brother Harris from the House of Harris.
Hey, beautiful King, how you doing today?
I'm blessed. Good to hear your voice, Noble. How you feel?
I'm beautiful. And to the rest of the family and the King's bench and the members, I'm doing good. I didn't get much of the lesson, but the little bit I got gave me encouragement. This is one of the finest educations I have ever received.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. That's how it was supposed to be established. The Church of England was given glebe to establish schools. Not for playgrounds and parties and selling liquor and anything. It's for schools.
Yes.
Exactly.
So I'm glad you were able to feed and get nourishment. Like I said, we look forward to you each and every time you stand upon this holy ground. And indeed it is holy. So thank you. All right. You can continue. You digress. Well said. Brother Militant from the House of Militant. You there, Noble? Okay, well, we love you still the same. And Brother Gray from the House of Gray, if you're able to speak.
Greetings, King, Queen,
Greetings, Noble.
Greetings, Noble.
and everyone on the King's bench. I have to take a word from the King that he always said, there was never a time we were not here. And that was proved today through they never dissolved the true English church. The officers were basically left in limbo or waiting for the positions to be filled so it could reestablish itself. And through the third English Church of England, those officers of that body politic is here. Because when we look back at the town of Paulette versus Clark, the whole reason they couldn't get that land was because they had no grantee. So they had to pass it back to the crown or back to the king. But they did let them have the people that were listed, the 64 have through fee simple and made it a public land. And so now we know that because we know that we are corporate and we are a corporate soul of the church and we have the grantee, the right of grantee. Many of you have seen it even on here when King shared it with us. So we're here now. So now we know that this place or this so-called government got everything through common recovery or fee simple. So basically what I'm trying to tell people listen is that all this so-called government is a tenant on the king's land. And the people who buy land from them and pay them taxes are subtenants. Well, I'm here today to tell you that the king is back and he has this whole country is a allodial land. It's time for the landlords to talk to the tenants to let them know that the body politic is back and the English church is back. And with that, I digress.
Well, you closed it. That was deep. Well said. We don't need to say nothing else. Everybody get that brother clap. Well said, well said. I just like to give honor to all those who spoke latter. You know, I can tell that your intelligence and your understanding as a result of your intelligence has grown. And as I said, in studying law, you must look at this as you look at infancy. You know, you miss any part of that infancy, then you miss the best times of your life. You know, a lot of times in life, when in our infancy, the purpose of that infancy is to be instructed. You know, and you can be instructed in the good and the bad way. You know, and it says, still into a child with his right, and they never depart from thee. Same way go with the law. You know, law and man is one, and the way law is expressed is through man. And the best expression of the law through man is through the people. And we know he was rich in spirits, and spirits is the term that deals with identity succession. It means spirit-sided. So I thank you all for being here today as being descendants of the spirit-sided that was established by our ancestors, who we know and call Jesus Christ, King Edgar the Peaceful. And his will is our will, and our will is the will of our master. And the masters the ones we learned from, because they was at the will of our master. And with that, we all, Archbishop got the last word.
Once again, everyone, thank you for tuning in. We always enjoy having our brothers and sisters, you know, even those who haven't found their way up here yet, because as like the King said, we're teaching or we're speaking at a time, which can probably say the future, for those who are going to hear it in the future point, because by the time things really start taking off for them to comprehend this, will be long gone and in different ways of operating the church. But if at the same time, if you still hear, you have the opportunity to hear our voice, then you know you still have the ability to come home. So once again, stay tuned to the future videos. Do what you need to do. Like Brother Esquire said, don't cut in line. Watch video 1 through 2 through 3, all the way to the point you get here. It's going to take you some studying to do. So start putting yourself into a position where you can make more quality effort to be able to get this information, because you're not going to get it anywhere else. And with that being said, peace.
Peace.
Peace.